Seamless process. So we're recording, it looks like.
That's good.
All right, so we'll just dive right in. So welcome everyone to Drop the Mic. This is episode 6, and this is the Chamber podcast where I get to chat with Chamber members, local business folks, entrepreneurs, innovators, creative people, and we get to understand who they are, what they do, but most importantly, why they do it. And I'm excited today. Before I jump into that, actually, I want to just thank our partners in this project, which is Easthampton Media. Without them, I would not be able to do this. So thank you to Jen Ramsey, the executive director over there, and her team, Ryan Arnold, who is the production coordinator, and Tim Riley, who is their operations manager. So thank you to them. And I'm very excited today to welcome my guest for episode 6, Casey Douglas, who is the owner of Galaxy, located here in Easthampton, Massachusetts. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks for having me, Mo.
How are you?
It depends on what day of the week, right?
I know, right? We're recording this during times of COVID. We are in the very beginning of phase 2 of reopening Massachusetts. So I know that Casey has navigated through quite a bit through this time. So I'm interested to hear about that as we proceed on. But before we get into that, Casey, I would love for you to give a synopsis of who Casey Douglas is. Where does he come from? How did he get here?
All right. Sure. A resume. I don't know. I'm the 6th out of 7 children, right? So I come from a big family. I relocated out here to Easthampton 21 years ago. Had a 3-year-old daughter, was looking for a place to raise a family, get out of my family's shadow. I worked for my brother in a restaurant for 14 years. So,
where was that? Where did you start? Where was that start?
Well, the day I turned 16, I was a dishwasher at a place called Sibel's. Another Season, which was a nice bistro, French bistro on Beacon Hill, fine dining. So I had an experience of fine dining. I learned, school of hard knocks. Loved the profession, loved the camaraderie, loved the instant gratification, loved the idea of working with my hands, loved the newness of it, and sort of fell into cooking. Did go to art school for a couple of years, Mass College of Art, a couple of years of night school, so I could get into college. I didn't graduate from high school. I got a certificate of attendance. I was there. So just found out that I had a passion to lead, or, it's passion to lead, but also, I don't know. I worked with a cook who said, I'm always on the side of the food, so it just had this sense of like doing the right thing by the product. And so I just sort of evolved. I married a tremendous woman 31 years ago. Who's been a very good mentor and educator for me. She's got a master's degree. She's a big deal at the Bay State Hospital. So it's given me an opportunity to understand how to not be so subservient. I'm a 6th out of 7 kids, so I was the gopher, but also like a creator and a leader. And so, we definitely have different management styles. And it's been interesting to see how we evolve, but it's my evolution to entrepreneur has always been that sense of if they can do it, I can do it, because I could do it better. I'm a harder worker. I'm a more persistent person. So it's one of those, like, I don't know if this is the resume you're looking for or the direction.
No, it's, we're not, look, I don't have a regimented
script.
No, I just have some general things that I wanted to explore with you. And it's really about getting to know Casey and what he's doing and why and more importantly, why you're doing it and, how you got from point A to point B. So you're good.
Right. Yeah. No. And at this point, my evolution started to steer away from the hands-on element at the restaurant. I've sort of enjoyed the run of 6 years there, where it's gotten to a level of comfort and consistency, good staffing. So I was in a spot where I wasn't a big focal point of the restaurants. My daughter handles the front of the house, and we have a good consistent staff there, and the back of the house. So I've got my guy Dan. So it allowed me to be more engaged in the community and do more artwork. I've just been put on the Easthampton Cultural Council. I have put in an application for the Easthampton City Arts. I've been doing the EDIC, which is the committee for the city volunteer position. I am currently doing a Windows project with ECC, which is a new thing that Rachel's been talking to you or trying to talk to you about just getting existing art.
She just reached out just about 10 minutes ago.
Okay, and then ECA is also doing what they started out as a grant fund, a relief fund. May not be the right words, but they just wanted to sort of take some of their dollars that they had that was going to be spent in other areas this year and just get it out to artists to try to do some production. So I've been involved in the selection committee of artwork, and we're going to have a second round of that later this afternoon. I'm doing a video for Treehouse. They're trying to do a fundraiser, get area chefs to do dishes, and then I know Unmi is going to be doing some introductions to it. So I'm just meeting with you. I'm sort of just still doing what I wanted to do, but in a whole different ball of wax than what I thought I was going to be doing 4 months ago.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting how I have watched you evolve from when I first arrived with the chamber in 2014 to now, and really going after being involved. And it's really a beautiful thing to watch happen. So, well, yeah, you've been doing that a lot.
Yeah, the issue is you've seen me is that I have a lot of passion.
Yes, you do.
And it may not always be the right direct. I don't know. My wife is good at reeling me in, at looking at the whole picture, because I tend to get narrowly focused on things.
Sure.
But it comes from a point of passion.
Yes.
And things that I think are fun for me, and you're like, whatever were you saying, what gets you going? That's the stuff that gets me going, is the projects that I like to get involved in and support and do. So
we'll talk a little bit more about that and what you're up to with those other groups that you're involved with. Sorry?
Endeavors.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to talk a little bit too about, we're in this current situation, and I'm just wondering, it is now June, today is June, 9? Yeah. And so we've been in this space since the middle of March. And I remember when this all broke and you came into my office and you were like, Mo, what does this mean? And I'm like, I don't know what this means, but here we are. And then by the time you left, I could see, what I really enjoy about when you and I have conversations and I can communicate is I can see your wheels turning, and that's kind of exciting. And so I saw your wheels were turning, and by the time you left, we kind of spun off on your heels and you were off and running, and you kind of took this whole situation by the horns. And so I want to talk about what that was. And so, we got the first informational, stay at home, businesses to close, and blah, blah, blah. So how did that affect you in that immediate moment, and what did you end up doing?
So what I ended up doing was taking a deep breath and picking a direction and feeling like I knew what it was. And part of the direction was the restaurant is a part of the food chain of Easthampton, and that I still have employees, I still have, obligations, but my sense was, being married to a healthcare professional, is understanding what responsibilities are and safety is and reality is. And so what I didn't want to do was pinch the food sources, and stop feeding people like I had been, because then they'd have to find their food someplace else. And then they'd be at the supermarket where it was more contagious.
Mhm.
So we just went into button down mode,
Yeah.
where we all made a commitment to saying, all right, 3 front of the house workers stepped up and said, hey, listen, I don't want to collect unemployment. I just want to work. My husband is got a job at home now. My daughter's not going to school. The baker, has a boyfriend, and it's so just those two hung out together. And I said, all right, we're going to focus on to go. And I went down to the river and I spoke to Joe O'Rourke, and we put together an ad right on the spot. And, I tried to explain to him, it's like, it's about safety. It's about, food choices. And he was like, no, they don't want to know that. They just want to know what you're providing. And
Right.
so we put together a really short, sweet ad, and we're running. And it took us a couple of days to figure out, because all of a sudden we were like, had things in our way that we didn't need before. And we needed stacks of to-go containers, and we needed stacks of boxes and bags and things like that. So,
it's not that easy to, if you're an in-house server, right? Serving service provider or meal provider, then all of a sudden to shift to takeout, that's like, whoa.
Right. So, I had all the cooks at the beginning, and then after the first week, I lost 2 cooks. So from 6 days a week, we went down to 5 days a week. And then a week later, I lost another cook when he found out that there's an extra $600 in the unemployment. So, we started to go down to 4 days a week, and I started to buy from one food source. I had been going to the Restaurant Depot, and I really did not feel safe there. I didn't see the protection in place. And so I stopped going there, and I basically got food for the week one time at the beginning of the week from PFG, Performance Food Group down in Springfield. They sell everything. Mm-hmm. And so, we just went into sort of lockdown mode of, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to feed people. And the front of the house came up with a really good system where people order and they pick up on 15-minute slots. And we basically turned it into a cafeteria style, where we made, sheet trays of food, and we just scoop and go, and we were
still adhering to your fine dining ethos, right?
Yeah,
and that's another thing that's difficult, because you can't necessarily, not everything on your menu travels.
No, that's
right. And people don't stop to think that.
Right. And we also didn't know about the extra money with unemployment. We just sort of heard the fear of jobs and money, and people were going to be struggling. So we came up with comfort food, things that were affordable and family friendly. Kids don't want to get broccoli rabe,
Right.
They wanted fried chicken and mashed potatoes. They wanted meatloaf. They wanted, stuff that they were comfortable. So we offered very reasonable priced food from the beginning, and it just kicked our butt. We did 80% of sales in April than we did the previous year, but we were open fewer days, and we didn't have the alcohol, and it burnt us out.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Well, other restaurants weren't open, and people needed food, and they didn't want to go to the supermarket. And the thing that I was saying to the staff and to the customers are that we're trained professionals. We take classes. We're obligated to take classes. Where the supermarket, the baggage handler doesn't take classes. The restockers don't know about these things, and so it's that kind of thing where it's like, I don't know, I felt like I had the information to do all the things right, and we did. It's just that the sort of the staffing part sort of fell apart. Unfortunately, one of my cooks struggling with alcoholism. We had to take him to a rehab where he's been for 30 days and just got out. We played golf yesterday. Things are good. So we sort of had to switch into a little bit more of a shutdown mode. You know, we had to close for a week, and we only did Mother's Day, and we did plants and champagne, and we sort of like decided that it was not about, you know, what can we earn for the week? We just were sort of like, what can we manage this week, and what would be nice? So we, you know, we made brunch for Mother's Day, and it just was nice to catch our breath, and so the point we are now is that we're, you know, phase 2 is started, and outdoor dining.
And so how have you, no, what's your thought on that?
Relax.
Got it.
We still have the PPP for another 2 weeks. We've been evolving every single week. Things have changed, and I prefer not to be on the forefront this time and say, let's paint arrows, let's put up plexiglass, let's do this. And then a month from now, it'll be different again.
Yep.
So we're really thinking that we will offer seating available for the customers, but we will not provide service. So you can get your bags of to-go food, you can sit outside, and there'll be a hand washing station and bottled water, but we're not going to be serving you. And then come the 4th of July,
we'll see what's next.
come with a real plan, and, you know, bring on, you know, people are going to want full service.
Yeah.
Does that mean we have to have the whole bar available for drinks when we're only going to be doing 40 people?
Right.
So, oh, well, we sold one Cosmo tonight and we made this sour mix, you know? So it's that kind of like, let's just ease into what the next phase is for us.
Yep. Sure.
Because it's basically, I was talking to a new employee, old employee from Apollo, who I had since had to hire. Her, it's like we basically have to come up with a new business plan.
Yep.
You know, and the one thing that I was saying to her is that the one thing we do know is our fixed income, and that's sort of our fixed expenses.
Right.
That's sort of our biggest hurdle. And this was part of the conversation I had with my sister Kim, who does the books, is that we're obligated for $7,000 a month to the bank. That number is not going away. That is the number that I cannot control. That's the rent and the build out. I can control the labor, and I can control the food costs, and, you know, the electricity and the gas and all that stuff is pretty much going to be the same. So we have to figure out where we're going to be at as far as sales. You know, we were doing about 17 a week, which put us, you know, 850,000, which easily covered the $7,000 a month. That put us below 10%, which is what restaurants like to be. Do I know what sales are going to be in the future? Are we going to be more fast casual? Do we go towards the higher end market?
Right. That's all up for grabs.
I mean, the one thing that we've learned is that this takeout stuff has been super efficient. We did almost $4,000 one night with 7 people, and it was a lot of work.
Right.
Restaurant used to have 13 people on a Saturday night, and there's food trucks, there's something else going on, and we do $4,000, but yet we had an army of people in case we did 5,000, and that way we would ensure everything was smooth. So it's
right. However, I really love your maybe I'm reading this wrong, Casey, and let me know if I am, but I feel like this kind of creativity and this kind of let's pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and let's get at it is kind of exciting to you.
I think what's exciting to
me,
it
might not be comfortable, and you may not, I don't know. I feel like there's a certain part of your personality that's always going to be like, come on, let's go and we'll dig in.
Sure. Well, it's problem solving.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a creative person.
Yes.
And that's a blessing and a curse, you know, because I think of 10 things and 2 of them might be brilliant and 2 of them may be absolutely stupid. But, I think of all these things. So it's not like I just simply have one direction that I could potentially go. I have 10 potential directions I can go.
Right.
And so,
Deciding sometimes is the tough part.
yeah. And so I do like the creative part of it. I do like the idea of, well, what does this mean if we're fast casual? What does this mean if, we have a relationship with Mountain View Farm where we say, hey, you're our main source of food for vegetables, and that's what it's going to be. And the clients have to understand that, wow, that's pretty neat. That's a one-on-one relationship. We already have that relationship, but it's supplemented. I don't want to take advantage of the relationship I have with Ben and Liz.
No.
We haven't traded cash money in 5-6 years. I simply take food from the farm and they simply come in for dinner
Right.
early enough. And so I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think it's going to be it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out for you, because I know that from conversations that you and I have had, restaurants like consistent, right? But if you're depending on one local source for whatever ingredient, there's going to be variation from day to day, perhaps, or week to week.
Oh yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's a new space, perhaps.
Exactly. So that's the thing. It's like, what is the market going to bear coming out of this? Obviously, we're in a recession. We haven't been in a recession in a really long time. One was coming, and that we all were enjoying the prosperity of a great economy. I think it started in 2016. Mm-hmm. Oh, it actually may have started a lot earlier than that with the previous administration, but maybe 2016 is getting the credit for all the economy grades. Sorry, don't want to divulge into politics.
All right, let's not do that.
So evolution is always a part of the landscape in the business community. And
so that was all of that was incredible. And it was really, I know that you were exhausted, your team was exhausted, and you guys worked really hard, but I was just really so amazed. And I'm not amazed, that's not the right word, but maybe proud of how, everybody has kind of shifted and responded to do what they needed to do and how they needed to do it, because not everybody's doing it the same way. And then on top of that, uncertainty, exhaustion, exhilaration, maybe even at some points, your wife Laura is a healthcare provider, and that's a little bit of a wrench in the wheel of your.
I wouldn't say it's a little.
Okay.
So at the beginning, ramping up.
Tell us about that.
We could see New York, right? We could see that it was imploding and it was coming. And so we had conversations about what it potentially mean for her. And the hospital had to shift its different floors and different units. And so ICU became the hub of positive, and then it just expanded. And there was conversations that they may put employees in hotels because the fear of how contagious it was and just the evolution. They didn't know. They just wanted to be
so much was unknown. It was unknown from day to day, just like your end of the thing of stuff. Yeah.
So we're having these conversations, daily, and the subject comes up that she might not come home because they may quarantine themselves. And and that's tough, as I'm struggling to keep the business afloat, as I'm struggling to try to keep employees showing up. The fear was coming home to an empty house where she wouldn't be there. Okay. And that was really hard. It was really hard that I didn't express it to the staff. I just was holding on to this fear because that's what it was. And I couldn't articulate what was making me so anxious and why my normal jovial self was not coming out. And so the following week we were able to express that, but it was tough, you know. So she ended up taking the 6th floor of positive COVID patients at the hospital. So she had a positive COVID floor for over 3 weeks. So she was wearing the whole, you know, gown set up and training her staff and dealing with the whole element of what that was. And that sort of was nice that it gave at least a consistency. It ended the unknown, because she was getting a lot of patients that were potentially positive but not tested yet. The testing was so far behind. It was a night.
Craziness.
Yeah, and so I was living in the basement and she was living upstairs. You know, we didn't share a space for about 10 weeks. And that was tough.
Yes.
You know, there's no physical contact.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, it evolved, and it was also very comforting to know what was actually happening.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting all these different numbers from different areas. And I was getting factual, real-time information. One of the things was that, you know, bring tears, is that she, you know, was expressing to me about what was going on. And you know, me an arts guy, immediately contacted the Valley Arts on Cottage Street, Juliet, and said, hey, listen, what's happening is patients aren't getting visitors. They're not allowing visitors. They're there alone.
Right.
And we talked about doing an art project together where she could collect some artwork. We could email it to the hospital. We could print it out and present artwork to the patients. We weren't able to fulfill that. It just got too busy. But it's like, the goal was always there, is to try to improve the experience for people, or try to do more than just like focus on work. I mean, we, you know, tried very hard to not beat a dead horse. Like, what are you going to do about the business, and what are you going to do about the hospital, and what's, you know, that it was just so draining to have the only conversation be about that. So one of the things that she did was she talked with another doctor about the lack of successes that the hospital is being successful, but yet we're so focused on the illness and the deaths that she started Code Rocky. And that.
Oh, right.
Yep. So.
Love that.
Yeah. So they would say Code Rocky on the intercom, and whoever was available would come out to the lobby and.
Nice.
You know, clap for somebody who was being discharged, who was treated from the COVID and survived.
Yeah.
So it went viral.
Nice.
And Sylvester Stallone even did a Code Rocky for a friend.
Aww.
So she was on national TV, and you know, proud of her. You know, she you know, understands the severity and the focal point, but she also stands the human part of it, and that, you know, they're warriors and they're survivors, and they're positives to come out of the situation. So there's a nice balance between, you know, reality and things we can do to focus people on other things, you know. So,
such a beautiful story.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yay. Speaking of other things and other focuses, let's get back to your creativity stuff. So you're on the Cultural Council.
Yes.
Committee?
What's that? Committee. Yes.
Council?
Committee. Yeah.
And so you guys are working on what?
Working on so there's been a lack of stuff in general, content. How many people can watch The Tiger King? And we thought that we might be able to do something to get artwork exposed to people. Very similar to the project that I approached you at before, my Bear project, was that we're committed $250, which is not very much, to supplies to hang artwork in storefronts. And so we're putting out a call to artists, or we're, connecting with artists who have already been involved with ECA and ECC, and asking them to send us video or files of their artwork so we can print them out and then put them up on either vagrant storefronts or closed storefronts, or even storefronts that are open, so that as people are walking around town, because the idea is for people not to travel 50 miles away from home, is stay at home and let's give you some visual things to do. So that's something that Rachel and I started kicking around about 2-3 weeks ago, and so hopefully we'll start to see some of that stuff come to fruition in another couple of weeks.
Okay.
So if you see random artwork in storefronts and see a little tag, it's ECC. It's the Cultural Council doing what their role is. They have about $11,000 a year that they get from the MCC, which is meant for art grants projects. In September, they have the call to artists, or the applications for funding. And so what they're doing is they're just taking an opportunity to say, well, let's do something else until that point.
Sure.
So, and another thing we're talking about doing is we're working with Laudable Productions is to do projections. We'd like to also project art throughout places in the city. Now, granted, that have to be a nighttime thing, and people aren't really out and about at night quite yet. But that's something we see is, a potential way to take basically pre-existing art. So it's not about gearing up and being creative and like, let's show time. It's like, no, let's expose artists who have work that hasn't been able to be seen.
Sure. Excellent.
Yeah.
So Casey, where do you think, all of this, you've got this, your passion for art, which spills over into your passion and your artistic work that you do through the restaurant, and even the way you artistically love your community. Where does all of that passion come from? Where do you think where is that well? What is that well? Do you know?
No, I
What gets you out of bed in the morning? Like what is
coffee?
Yes.
Yeah. No, but so like my Zen time is the nighttime. Mm-hmm. I've sort of, and it's, I've cultivated over the years, but it's the, drinking my 6-pack of PBR and enjoying the fruits of the local growers, and just getting into my head, and do things that I think might be fun for other people and know that would be a blast for me. And, I think that I've always had a little bit of that as far as being a mentor in the business world, as far as being, an entrepreneur, that there's always some marketing angle or product that people want. And now it's just sort of flipped into a little bit of the art world that I sort of put that on hold in my life to start a family, because I didn't see the financial ability as an artist to make it. I figured I'd sort of flip it the other way, is that let me, earn a living at what I can do well, and then have art as a hobby. That way it doesn't have the pressure of having to be a money thing, because I'm not a money guy. I'm a numbers guy. A lot about some percentages, but as far as money goes, and it's just, I've been a fortunate situation where my wife's been the breadwinner, so money hasn't always been. I always talk to her in cash flow. Mm-hmm. It's like debt and assets and our cash flow. So
there's another piece to this too, which I also think is a beautiful thing, that your willingness to, I feel like you don't necessarily feel like you need to be the hoarder of information. information. You're very willing to share what you know, share how you got to where you are, your mistakes and your successes with those who want to start their own business. And I watched you do that several times, and it's really a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well,
So
you know,
maybe not a lot of folks know that, but that's,
yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean,
Go ahead.
well, I hate to see people fail.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Especially when they have a dream or a passion, or they have, you know, a financial investment. You know, it's like a Tavern on the Hill. Larry, friend of mine, known him since I moved to town. They got some negative Facebook posts when this first started to happen about the chaoticness of you know how long it took and the quality of food that they were getting, and we had sort of like just clicked right away. The front of the house came up with a brilliant system of ordering. One person's on the phone, one person's packing bags, and one person is dropping off. And they staple the orders to the bags. And they had a system really well done. Dano, how are you? I'm on a video chat. No worries.
Special guest.
Yeah, special guest. And so I reached out to Amy and I said, Amy, listen, we sort of come up with a really good system. And she said, great. So I came, I invited her down. She came and saw what it was. And she explained her problems that they had 3 phone lines and they were taking more orders than they can handle. And that,
Yeah.
you know, it's like they still had things in their way. Like I said, we had things in our way.
Yep. That's
And
awesome.
they needed to tighten up their menu. And then she's, you know, I saw her later and she's like, no, it's working out really well. You know, thank you so much. And so like, you know, on one hand, I could be so like, we can poach their business by doing it better. But on the other hand, it's sort of like, you know,
There's enough hungry people for everybody.
Exactly. And just because they don't have the same team to figure out problems doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be able to figure out problems. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. You know, and my buddy John at Holyoke Hummus is, you know, discovered that the cafe being closed has been a little bit more successful because he's doing more to-go food. You know, so you never would have think these things until they actually happen. And so it's like you don't want to see people fail.
No. So what is your definition of success right here, right now in your life?
Contentment, you know, it's not financial, it's not accolades, it's not, you know, the last 2 days have actually been like the best 2 days I've had in 6 months. I actually got to play the Kings game with my daughter and Dan yesterday. That of course is golf, to those of you who don't know what the Kings game is. Hanging out with the neighbors, you know, we have a fire like 2 or 3 nights out of the week.
Nice.
You know, it's sort of like the restaurant has been kicking my butt. We've had to evolve and stress and change. And finally, we've got a little bit of a formula and a little bit of a staffing situation that's resolved. And you know, we're certainly not meeting expectations as far as financial needs. And, you know, the PPP is going to help us out for the short term. We're not going to be able to continue this way long term, but we'll figure it out.
Right. So, you know, you've had the opportunity to be doing something and being open in some form or another since the start of all this. We're in phase 2 now, and some folks are just coming online. And barring specific tactical instruction, but what would be a piece of advice that you've learned thus far that you wished you knew that you maybe might want to pass along to someone who's, you know, one of our folks who are just starting to come online here in the initial part of phase 2?
I don't know. I would say that just everything's moved so fast, and that don't jump in whole hog and think that that's what's going to be the norm in the first week in August.
Right.
And so, cautiously optimistic,
Hmm.
and you know, it's a tough thing as far as employees coming back. You know,
Right. Hmm.
you definitely would like to bring them all back, but you know that the you know um, what you're going to reach financially is going to be down a certain percentage, 10, 15, 20, 25%. We don't know what that number is yet. So, um, unfortunately, from a business owner's perspective, I have to say slow and steady. Don't think that people are going to want to go out to the
Hmm.
shoe store or to the malls or to any of those places, and that you're going to, you're already taking a financial hit. You've already we've dipped deeply into our lines of credit. We haven't had to hit our credit cards yet, but that's, the idea is to try not to go deeper in debt
Right.
during what comes next.
Right.
So,
Thinking for the long term.
because like the immediate thing that we thought of, the mayor reached out to my wife about, can you be a part of the reopening committee? Do you have suggestions? And, we've come up with ideas, but it's sort of like, would they be too short term? Like, I think that it would be ideal for like Antonio's, Silver Spoon, and Coco to have designated pickup parking spots
Mm.
for people buying food, that maybe there should be picnic tables in the
Interesting.
Rotary so people could eat food socially distanced at the Rotary. It's things like Northampton are doing by expanding sidewalk dining and those kind of things. So, I mean, I'm encouraged by those, or maybe want to push those, but on the other hand, is it only going to be a 4-week window?
Right.
And then
Right.
things should go back to normal, where people like, the outside is great, but the bugs come out at 7 and the sun is too hot at 5. I'd rather be inside when it's air conditioning.
Yeah.
And the numbers may simply say the second wave is not what we expected, or the second wave is worse because the protesting.
Right.
We
Right.
don't know. So it's
Right.
like, I don't want to say like, go out and buy patio
Yeah. Yeah.
sets
Yeah. No.
and
Slow
set
but
up
steady.
and
Slow
set
but
up
steady.
another 16 seats, only to see
Right.
those seats half occupied, and then
Mm.
you brought in a server to make a living off of the tips from those tables, and those tables don't come to fruition. So it's
Mm.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I wish I could tell everybody it's going to be great, this is going to work
Right.
out, just follow this path. It's like, I don't know what
No.
that path is.
No. But I think that's sound advice. Slow but steady, and don't get ahead of ourselves. Yeah.
Right, right, we've
So,
all,
are you a reader?
not really.
No. Do you
No,
listen? You listen to music.
I do listen to music.
So, if you have a soundtrack for your life, right?
Yeah,
What is the absolute one song that absolutely has to be on that soundtrack for your life?
can't. I can't. I
Can't.
can't put it. I can't put it away. I will say that I sort of discovered 2009 Mighty Mighty Boss Tones
Mm.
album, and fan of the Boss Tones from back in the day in Boston. Knew the original bass player Nate, and they have an album that you should go listen to. And the first song is "Graffiti Worth Listening To."
Ah,
And
I like
so,
it.
as you know, that's been a little bit of my jam lately. Is public,
A little.
yeah, public art. When I went to my wife and I had an amazing trip in France before all this, and the public art was great, and it was street art, Banksy and all that kind of stuff. And so that starts off the album, and then like 3-4 songs in, they have a song called "The End Is Near." It's about the apocalypse, and it just sort of like, it's like, yeah, be prepared, know could end, and enjoy life, and like embrace life. So it's like, it's doomsday, but also like,
Come on, let's go.
let's go. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. That I love the Rihanna Ti song,
Yes.
living my life, doing how I want to do. I
Yep.
paved all the way for you cats to get paid today. It's like,
Hit.
acknowledgement for those who come forward. That's always been one. And the Rihanna song, "We Found Love in a Hopeless Place." We found love.
Mm.
And I always want to change the lyrics. Like,
Right.
Easthampton, we found love in a gracious place. We found love in a factory town. We found love in a loving community. You know, that
Yeah.
sort of like it you know, uplifting song. So it's hard for me to say like that is the pinnacle. You know, it used to
No, but you
be,
have a soundtrack, so you can put it all on there.
yeah. I mean, it used to be more of the Cure and more of the
Yeah.
emotions, like deep emotions, and now it's like I've done that. I've done the doom and gloom, and know that any kind of misery and like I've chosen a long time ago uh, to be a happy person. Happiness is a choice,
It is.
and
I say that all the time.
you know, and as a person of privilege, not gonna lie to you, it's a lot easier to have that you know mindset. But
Yes.
I also, you know, am $1 million in debt, you know, so I can choose to be sort of like the woe is me, and you know I got to work 50 hours a week to be able to maintain this, or you know the
Mhm.
woe is me. It's just sort of like, no, this is what I got to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And um, I'm also going to have this other release that makes me happy. That's the yin to the yang.
That's
Um,
it.
so it's, you know, you know,
I do know. So Casey,
yes.
if people want to talk to you more about those projects that you're involved with,
Yeah.
how do they get a hold of you for your cultural?
ECC.
Yes, thank you. And then for Galaxy, or for you in general, if you want that.
Um, well, the ECC definitely, you know, has a website and contact information that there's someone to get uh, involved in. I don't think they're as much of outreaching currently,
Okay.
um, but they will
There's
be.
there's there's numbers and things for the Easthampton Cultural Council.
Right. But they're going to be putting out requests for grants in September. So that's going to sort of what they're gearing up. The little art project, window projects, uh,
Yep.
is going to be a little element to it. But
Okay.
they're going to get into their normal role of grant funding. But ECA is doing something. They did the first round. So theoretically, some of their grantees are going to come to fruition. A few of them were performance arts stuff. And so hopefully they'll be scheduled. Part of the requests for the grant funding was it was something that the public was going to be able to see, I think by mid-July. So if you see some art projects happening, it's because the seed money from ECA, and they're going to do another round of funding in the next couple of weeks. So they're going to put out a request for proposal, an RFP, and it sort of touches on 5 points, like how engaging is it to the community, how important is it for you financially to get a little bit of seed money, you know, how interactive it is, and how feasible it is. How many people is it going to touch? And I know that the Valley Co-op has matched some funds on that, and they've also started a GoFundMe page. So that,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that may end up being a nice $15,000 worth of money that they get to put out, and you may start to see some really cool stuff. So ECA, if you just go through their website, I'm not sure if they have um, the window open for applications. They will be announcing the next round of grants. So they're the ones that handling it, and I'm just part of it. Like they had a Zoom meeting about how we all assessed the first, I think it was 31 applicants. You know, it was a 5-point system. Funny thing that we realized on it is Jeff Bagg, who is also part of that, is not a very optimistic person. And
Come on.
he kept giving like 1s and 2s to everybody, and I kept giving 4s and 5s to everybody. Like, yes, 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 yes. And he's like, no, more information, more details. You know, he's so like,
He's
don't make a decision. He like needs information
awesome.
before anything. And I'm like,
Woo!
feels good.
Yeah,
Feels
yeah,
good.
right.
You know,
So Casey, thank you so much for spending time with me today. It was really fun, and it's really great to see you.
Yeah.
Miss you, miss everybody.
You.
Social distancing here. We have to wrap it up for today, but I want to again thank our partner in crime here,
Can I show you just, I mean, it was in the Gazette already, but it's an evolving thing. I started this project, this art project. I couldn't do the ones that I wanted to do. Or I didn't finish the ones I wanted to do. But one of the ones that I'm working on daily is that Days of Isolation, it's called. And so it's it's the side of my house.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so
Yes. Yep.
we have the rainbow there
Yep.
for Pride Month.
Yep.
And so every day I drag out the ladder and I have a little box with a roller in it. It gets really messy every day. And I go and I put up my stripe and I put the ladder away. The people stop by and they take photographs, and so it's like my one tether to something that's just distracting. Because like the neighbors and my wife and I, we have this code word, Rochambeau. It means stop the conversation. We can't talk politics anymore. We all agree. We can't talk about health care, insurance. We all agree. So, and granted, there hasn't been a lot to talk about. So we just sort of like, get into that mode of like, we need other things to talk about. Right. So when we do get trapped in that rabbit hole, we say, oh, Rochambeau, and it's like, all right, that we talk about something different. Moving on.
Moving on. Speaking of moving on, I got to move on.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being with us. Thank you to Easthampton Media, the whole team there. They're awesome. I love working with them. If you want to find out more about the Easthampton Chamber, you can find us at easthamptonchamber.org. And you can also see this podcast along with the others that we have done on our YouTube channel and Easthampton Media's YouTube channel and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So there we have it. Thank you so much.
See you, Mom.